Have you ever sat down at your desk, ready to get started, and thought, I'll just check my messages first, only to look up and realize an hour has vanished? Or told yourself, I'll start in 10 minutes, and those 10 minutes somehow stretched into the entire afternoon? It's not that you didn't care about the work, and it's not that you weren't capable, it's that procrastination had quietly taken the wheel. The most dangerous thing about this bad habit is how innocent it feels in the moment. It doesn't arrive with the alarms or flashing lights. It arrives disguised as harmless delay, as a quick break, as a small decision to start later. But the truth is, every time you put something off, you're not just delaying a task, you're trading away a piece of your life. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Seneca warned, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life could end at any moment, and that knowledge wasn't meant to create fear, it was meant to spark urgency. When you see time for what it truly is, finite, precious, and slipping away, whether you use it or not, you stop treating it like it's disposable. Procrastination is the silent thief of dreams, relationships, and opportunities. And it's a thief we invite in every time we choose later over now. Imagine if you could break free from that cycle, not by working harder in bursts of panic, but by mastering your focus with calm, deliberate action. Imagine the version of you who doesn't wait for motivation, but moves with purpose every single day. That's the power of Stoic time management. And today you're going to learn how to use it to break procrastination for good. A few years ago, I knew a man named Koa, and if you looked at his resume or spoke to him for 5 minutes, you'd think he was destined for big things. He was talented, creative, and bursting with ideas that could genuinely make an impact. Friends, colleagues, even strangers at networking events would tell him, you have so much potential. But behind the compliments, the reality was very different. Koa's days were a patchwork of half-finished projects, missed opportunities, and late submissions that always came with a string of excuses. It wasn't that he lacked ambition, he had dreams as big as anyone. It was that he lacked consistent action. Every morning he'd sit at his desk with the best intentions, open his laptop, and tell himself he'd get started right after checking a few emails. Then he'd read just one more article, scroll just a little more, click through a few links for inspiration. By the time he looked up, the best, most focused hours of his day were gone, and he'd convince himself there was still time later, only later never came. Like so many of us, he called it bad luck or being busy, but the truth was harsher. It was procrastination in disguise, wearing the mask of productivity. The breaking point came when a career-changing opportunity landed in his inbox, a project that could have doubled his income and opened doors to the kind of clients he dreamed about. All he had to do was send in a proposal, but he waited, telling himself he needed to perfect every detail, that he'd get to it after lunch, then after dinner. By the time he finally sat down to write, the client had already chosen someone else. That night, sitting in the dim glow of his computer screen, frustration and shame hit him harder than ever before. In a late-night search for something, anything that could snap him out of the cycle, he stumbled upon a quote from Marcus Aurelius. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. It stopped him cold. For the first time, he saw his procrastination not as a minor flaw, but as a thief stealing from the finite number of days he had left. He realized he'd been living as if he had endless tomorrows, but in truth, his chances were slipping away today, in this very moment, and the only way to stop the loss was to act now. Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what is within our control, and when it comes to procrastination, that principle becomes a mirror we can't avoid looking into. You and I can't control how quickly the clock moves. We can't control when life throws unexpected interruptions at us, and we certainly can't control the fact that some tasks will always feel uncomfortable, boring, or intimidating. But we can control what we do next, right now in this moment. We can control whether we take the first small step forward or spend yet another hour negotiating with ourselves, telling stories about why later will be better. The Stoics drew a clear line between panic and purposeful urgency. They didn't rush recklessly, but they understood that delay comes with a price we often don't see until it's too late. Procrastination is more than just a bad habit. It's a subtle form of self-deception. It whispers to you that there's still plenty of time, that nothing bad will happen if you put it off just a little longer. But as Seneca warned, while we are postponing, life speeds being. And that's the part that hurts the most. It's not just the missed deadlines or opportunities. It's the days, weeks, and years you can never get back. For Koa, embracing this truth meant finally stripping away the illusion that there was ever going to be a perfect time, the right mood, or a magical burst of motivation. He began to see that the right time was never later. It was always now. That mindset shift didn't just make him work faster, it made him work with intention. Each time he caught himself slipping into the "I'll do it after" cycle, he reminded himself that he might not get another chance. This wasn't about fear of death, but about respect for life. When you start thinking like that, every moment feels heavier, more valuable, and you realize that letting procrastination steal it from you is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. There are 3 Stoic practices that, if you commit to them, can dismantle the bad habits of procrastination and replace them with a sense of calm, focused urgency that gets things done without burning you out. The first is what I call the one action rule. The moment you feel the familiar tug to delay, to get another coffee, to scroll for just a minute, to check your inbox again, interrupt it by committing to one small specific action that moves the task forward. Open the file, write the first sentence, make the first call. You don't need to finish the whole project in that moment. You just need to start. Momentum is born in movement, and once you've taken the first step, the next one feels less impossible. The second is time framing. This is about treating your day as a series of intentional blocks, each with a clear purpose, instead of letting hours slip away in a blur of "I'll get to it later." The Stoics valued structure because they knew the human mind drifts when it has no anchor. Decide in advance what each block of time will be for, and when the block arrives, begin. No debates, no bargaining. Protect that block as you would a meeting with someone important, because you are that important. The third is the memento mori mindset. Every morning, write down this question. If this were my last day, how would I spend it? This isn't morbid, it's clarifying. It strips away the illusion that you can afford to waste your hours on trivial distractions and pulls your focus toward what truly matters. When you see your time as finite, suddenly the task in front of you becomes less of a burden and more of an opportunity. For Koa, breaking his procrastination didn't mean overhauling his entire life overnight. He started with just one habit. Every morning before checking his phone or his email or doing any quick checks, he set a timer for 25 minutes and worked on his most important task. No matter how uncomfortable it felt, no matter how strong the temptation to push it off, those 25 minutes were non-negotiable. At first, it was hard as mind resisted, throwing out a dozen reasons to delay. But over time, those focused blocks became easier than natural. The small wins piled up. One completed paragraph became a completed report. One finished email became a sealed deal. Week by week, those 25-minute sessions added up to finished projects, on-time deliveries, and a visible change in how others saw him. The colleagues who once quietly avoided relying on him now sought him out for important work. His reputation shifted from unreliable to someone who gets things done. And more importantly, his self-image shifted too. He stopped seeing himself as someone who struggled to start and began seeing himself as someone who acts with purpose. That's the real gift of these Stoic practices. They don't just make you more productive. They change who you are. And once you see yourself as someone who acts now instead of later, you'll never want to go back to the person who kept waiting for the perfect time that never came. Procrastination is not laziness. It's misplaced focus. It's handing the steering wheel of your life over to fear, discomfort, or distraction, and letting them decide how you use the most precious thing you will ever own, your time. It's telling yourself that waiting is harmless when, in reality, every delay is a silent withdrawal from the limited account of days you have left. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, you could leave life right now. And that truth should not fill us with dread, but with urgency, the kind of urgency that drives us to act now, not later. Because later is an illusion. Later is where good ideas go to fade, where promises to ourselves go to weaken, where dreams slowly suffocate in the comfort of inaction. Imagine for a moment what your life could look like if you stopped letting the bad habits of delay run the show. What if you built a habit of action instead? A habit of starting even when you don't feel ready, of pushing forward even when the task feels heavy, of finishing what you begin because your word to yourself is something you refuse to break. Think about how many opportunities would open up, how much trust you'd earn from yourself and others, how much lighter your mind would feel when the weight of unfinished business no longer follows you around. The next time you hear yourself saying, "I'll do it later," I want you to pause and ask, if not now, when? And really listen for the answer, because you'll find that there is no better moment than the one you are in right now. Later is where dreams go to die. Now is where they are built. So take one action today. Just one. Not tomorrow. Not when everything feels perfect. Not when motivation strikes today. Your future self is out there waiting for you, and the only way to meet them is to start moving toward them right now.